Here we have the Minox B. This is the ultimate spy camera. This was used by spies for many years. The Rosenbergs, credited with giving the Soviets enough information to create their own nuclear weapons, used this, and it actually came back to bite them because the way this camera works, it actually leaves an impression on the film that is particular to the camera that is being used, and the prosecutors were able to link the film that was in like dead drops and different things to the camera that the Rosenbergs had. So this was just one of the many issues that convicted them, but not necessarily designed for a spy camera, but as a camera that you could pocket and use everywhere. It used 9mm film. It has a single aperture f3.5. The focal length is 15mm, as you can see. The film was advanced by opening and shutting the case. So open and shutting it, this will advance a frame. Has a frame counter. It has a setting for shutter speeds. It has a setting for distance. It had a match needle selenium cell on it. Now, as these cameras become older, or CDS cell, I forget exactly the correct terminology for this one, these cells become weaker and do not respond as well to light. As a matter of fact, we have to press the button in. You can see I'm still getting a response on this one. If I press my finger in and press it again, it's lower. So this is still working. I haven't used this for a little while. What adapted this so well for spy use was the fact that it has a chain, and each one of these beads on the chain was a measuring distance. So if you set the camera all the way down to 8 inches, you had an 8-inch bead. So here I could now take a picture like this and I would be assured of having good focus. Okay, now it just so happens that one of these smaller, I'm not sure if it's the 8-inch or this next one, it covers an 8x10 inch of paper. So it's a perfect camera to copy documents. It's also just a nice camera to use for other uses. Now, Minox film, as far as I understand, isn't really being made now. I think there are some people marketing it. I could be wrong, that maybe there is some official Minox film out there, but I want to show you this other little apparatus here. This is a film slitter. This is sold by Goat Hill Photography. You can find their ad on subclub.org. And what we'll see is this is a lucite block with razor blades. And these razor blades are placed 9mm apart. And this is a 35mm channel. Well, I can take this now, of course in the dark, and I can run a roll of 35mm film through it. And I'll be able to get 2 rolls, very long rolls, depending on whether I use 12, 24, or 36 exposures of Minox film out of this. And that film can be cut to the appropriate length and then wound on the cassette that comes with these cameras, a plastic cassette, and used that way. Now, the advantage to slitting your own film is that, of course, you can get any film you want for it. I could use microfilm, 35mm microfilm, and I could produce extremely high-resolution photographs of copied documents or detailed plans or whatever. But other things, more mundane use, more for photography. What happened as digital came into play, or before digital came into play, was film reached a height of technology that it had never known before. So putting like an Ektar 100 film in this, a color negative film, putting a type of tabular type grain film from either Kodak or Ilford, taking the Ilford film XP XP2 400 ensures you that you get fairly outstanding images at just about any exposure. It's very hard to expose XP2 wrong. Even though the exposure value is technically 400, you're probably going to find usable images from ASA 50 to 1600, so it gives you a huge latitude. Color negative film gives you a huge latitude too. But so as these cameras went out of use, you could say, film technology just went outstandingly high, so it makes these cameras a very viable option for taking photographs today. A little hard to find the film or get it developed. There's a outfit in Canada called the Blue Moon that will print and develop, although they do develop the prints on a smaller size. I think I'll be sending a roll there just so I can do a video on it to show you. But Minox had their own developing tank, although people came out with many schemes to develop the film without a developing tank, including just wrapping the film around a pill bottle and sticking it in a regular development tank. Outstandingly high quality German engineering and craftsmanship at its height. Now the Minox B had models before it and had many models after it. The last Minox model sold for over $1,000. Minox basically as a camera company is dead. They tried to market some digital cameras, and frankly I don't even know how successful they were. Some of the beginning ones were kind of poor, and then I think they did come out with a better one later on, but honestly I haven't delved into their digital camera much. That Minox still survives as an optics company. You can find very high quality and very expensive binoculars. This camera I got was gifted to me, believe it or not. I ran a photo booth for Kodak in it, BJ's Photo in Portland, Maine, and I had a customer that came in. He was of German descent. We'd talk, you know, his family was. We'd talk about different things, and he mentioned one time he had his Minox B, and I said, wow, that's really cool that you have that. And so one day, much to my surprise, he came in with a bag, and in it was this camera, some cartridges. Well, it was actually in a plastic box. I have the case, I have the AG1 flash unit for it, and he gave it to me. Back then, and that's way back in those dollars, back then, and what am I going to say, this is in the 80s, it was worth, used on the market, it was worth $265. Now, as film prices had plummeted, you probably can pick up one of these Minox Bs for $100, around $100. So I was quite surprised because I never thought Minox and Leica prices would ever drop, but Minox prices did. But this is partially, in fact, by the fact that these cameras are so rugged that there's so many of them still around in operating condition. Like I say, the light meter may be a little off, but it's so easy to, once you do it, to start estimating exposure. And again, with the new films that they have, exposure just isn't an issue because the films have such a wide latitude. Now again, if you were to put transparency film in here, which you could slit down E6 film and put it in there, then exposure would be more of an issue. But they also had, if you use thin enough film, you could get 50 exposures on in a cartridge. Later, they limited it basically to 24 or 36. But like I say, you have focusing from 8 inches to infinity. Also, if you were to put it, you can see this little marker here. If you put it at a certain distance, you could use it basically where, if I turn this just a little bit, well, you can almost see it here. You can get from 6 feet to infinity in focus just by keeping it on one setting. So that way it just becomes a general point and shoot camera. And then you could go down to the other focusing things if you're doing something closer and sharper. You can see it has shutter speeds up to 1000. It has a T shutter, in other words, a bulb, so that you can keep the shutter open for time exposures. An excellent piece of craftsmanship. It's got to be one of the, if you were to talk about, you know, the 10 best cameras ever made, the Minox B would be in there. And like I say, it's got quite a history. You can read about the Rosenberg spy trial in the United States, where both he and his wife were convicted of spying. And like I say, they believed that they were able to pass enough information to the Russians to greatly accelerate their nuclear program. And but Minox Bs have been used much more for just for pleasure. The Minox B and the Slitter. This has a name to it, and I honestly can't remember the exact name. That's why I'm telling you where I got it, Goat Hill on subclub.org. And I would like to mention, though, that this is all adjustable. So I could take this apart and I could reset the blades to make it slit 16mm film instead. And why would I do that? Well, you've seen me with the Minolta 2, another not quite as versatile as this camera, but nonetheless it's very rugged and reliable. And you could likewise slit film for that as well, although there are a lot of 16mm films already out there that you can get. To mention one more thing too is you can get from Blue Moon, I believe you can get film already in Minox cartridges, so you can just get it that way. But Goat Hill on the subclub.org also will sell you film that he's already slit. So if you want some odd emulsion, including infrared film, I always wanted to try ASA 320 black and white film in one of these, just to see the grain and see what it was like. Just the idea amused me. But you can get infrared film, you can get all kinds of film that he has already slit, and you just buy them in certain lengths. At one time, and I'm not sure if he still does this, but if you provided the cartridges, he would actually load the film in and send it back to you as well. But so there's a big plug for him, because I've used his stuff. I like it. I bought the Slitter from him. But the Minox B, just an outstanding camera as far as the unbelievable sharpness of the lens. I've got an 8x10 print that someone sent me from a Minox B, and when I get it, I'll make a separate video of it. I'm going through my things and I'll eventually run across it again, but it's really kind of amazing what people can do with these cameras. The Minox B.